What would you give the advice to the younger you?
Don't be afraid of change. Embrace change. Look for change. Look for improvements. Be patient. Stay true to yourself. Believe in a higher power. And don't forget your family, because that's who really is there when it's all done.
Yeah, for sure. That's good
Embrace
advice.
change is really the biggest thing. Took me a long time to understand how important change was. Took me a long time not to be afraid to teach somebody else that was really good how to do my job. I realized not a long time ago, but I realized 15 years ago that the more I taught people how to do my job, the quicker I was advancing in my career.
Yeah, the rising tide lifts all ships.
Yeah.
It really does. It really does.
I think that's key for any leader, any COO,
Yeah.
is accept change, look for change, stay challenged. Don't get complacent.
Hello and welcome to the Systems Edge. This is a podcast where we talk to COOs, CEOs, CTOs, and any C-suite executive that deals with operational challenges. And on this show, we try to get into the weeds a little bit and talk about the things that work, the things that don't work. And today, our guest is Tyler Goss from Freedom Fuels, and I want to welcome you to the show. Thanks for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me, David.
Yeah. Why don't we start off like I always do every show? We have the guest take and basically talk about maybe what your role is, what your business does, maybe get into a little bit of what a typical day for you are. You're the COO, so you're definitely dealing with operations. So yeah, let's just start there.
Wow, typical day. That's I wish I could define a typical day in my world. Freedom Fuels is started in 2000. We incorporated February 6th of 2019. We sold our first gallons June 6th of 2019. We started out of our basements in North Dakota, my partner and I, and eventually moved down here to Casper to be more centrally located in the Rockies. We're primarily oil field based, servicing completions and drilling rigs and construction in the oil and gas realm. So we knew Casper was going to be a great place to kind of hit the Colorado market. Wyoming's pretty strong with both east and west, the Powder River, and then over in the Jonah Field. North Dakota, where we kind of got our base from, where my partner is from. You got the Bakken up there. Everybody knows the Bakken. Everybody's heard about the Bakken. And now we've been venturing down into Utah and into New Mexico most recently. Selling fuel 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Christmas Day, we're out there selling fuel. New Year's Day, Easter. I'm actually flying down to meet a client 8:00 Monday morning down in Farmington, New Mexico, which means I have to fly on Easter afternoon to get there. So it's one of those things you just grab it, and it's the oil field world. We sell about 35 to 40 million gallons of fuel a year. Some years are, or give or take 5 to 10 million. This year we're looking pretty strong with the uptick in what we see in the market. A lot of our clients are adding rigs right now and trying to capitalize on getting more crude to market while it's high. The gas market, we feel, is going to be a really good market coming up in the near future. So we positioned ourselves in some of the gas plays like Piceance Creek over in Colorado, western Colorado, and the Jonah Field in western Wyoming. They're really good gas plays. The San Juan Basin's another good one, just with their gas down there. The need for LNG coming up, the huge uptick in the marketing of gas. It seems like gas is widely more acceptable environmentally than crude is, or fuel. It's a widely accepted fuel. So I think gas has a strong future, where we see crude kind of, over the next 10 to 20 years going down a little bit or staying stagnant. We see gas really staying strong for decades to come.
Yeah. It's clean burning. I think that's the biggest reason probably.
And we have such an abundance of it. We really do.
Yeah.
As a world, not just the United States, but the world has an abundance of it.
Yes. Especially as technologies continue to to break out like they do. You mentioned when we were before we jumped on the call here that When we talking about you starting your business and, getting that first few gallons of fuel sold, and now you're at 30, 40, would you say million? So talk a little bit about that journey.
Oh,
That's
wow.
quite an amazing thought, right? To go from zero
Right.
to 30, 40 million.
So I'll wind you back a little bit. 16, I come from a mainly construction background, a project
Mm-hmm.
management background. 2015, 16 was a huge downturn, kind of a sudden downturn in the market. I happened to be putting my feelers out there for work, and I got picked up by Joe and his company because I'd known Joe for a while. And
Mm-hmm.
he's invited me over to interview for this diesel distribution position, manager position. And I didn't even know what a diesel distribution manager was at that point, but I know I needed a job. So went over there and they were doing about 750,000 gallons a month, losing piles of money every month. I came in there and the CFO was trying to teach me, how to make money with cents. And I would always done project management style as percent. I'm like, we got to be at least 25 to 30% margins here. And they're like, no, we just need to squeeze out another cent of margin. And I'm like, how is that going to help?
Mm.
You multiply that by million, 2 million, 3 million, 5 gallons a month, and that extra cent starts to make sense, right?
Right.
And so I came over, I grew that business from 750 to 5 million gallons a month just in the
Mm.
Bakken in a matter of 3 years.
Mm.
And at that point, Joe and I had been talking about going on our own. So we found an investor and we started our company. But those early years, um, of of selling, our goal was to hit 30,000 gallons a day. If we could just get to
Okay.
30,000, that's essentially 4 loads of fuel a day. Our goal was not for me or Joe to be working out in the field, putting the fuel in the tanks. We came up with a really good orientation and safety training class. We brought a lot of our expertise, and that's what we didn't just jump into it. It's why it took us 6 months to get all our licensing. We hired our CFO right off the bat about 2 months into it because we knew how
Mhm.
important collecting money is. And there's so much money exchanged doing commodities on a daily basis. We knew that that was going to be an important role. And we hit a home run with the first guy we interviewed and still with us today. And an essential piece of our business. Moving from logo design to branding, we knew in the oil field, branding is everything. Everybody loves the patriots, the freedoms, the liberties, right? And we were tied in pretty tight with Liberty Oil Field. That's a big frac company now, So we knew we wanted to be tied in there. And that's where freedom came from. And we all loved it. And the logo came from that. We loved the teardrop or the oil drop with the eagle and the crest in there. And then you get into the weeds, right? And then you get into all the regulatory stuff that comes with selling diesel fuel in different states, tax reporting, and holy smokes. And,
Mm.
luckily I didn't have to deal with a lot with that. Great business.
Mhm.
And we've got a great CFO to handle that, where I was handling a lot of the field stuff. And, remarkably, here in the Powder River, which is Wyoming, central Wyoming, when we first started, I was ordering all of my fuel out of North Dakota still. And I only had so these completions, they burn about 20,000 gallons of fuel a day. I only had 10,000 gallons of storage on site, and then I was getting 10,000-gallon loads out of North Dakota. So I had to time those out perfectly, so I wasn't paying a lot of money to these drivers to sit and wait to offload. So I was just, fingers crossed that the frac was going to continue burning on a 7-hour turn, to go to North Dakota, load and come back, that he wouldn't be waiting or that I wouldn't run the frac out of fuel, So it was challenging, but I learned a lot. It taught me a lot
Yeah.
about what my guys go through on a day in and day out basis in the field. I got a lot of respect for those guys because I spent a
Mhm.
lot of time out there. Yes, I have covered shifts on Christmas, on New Year's to give my guys time off to go home and see their families, and I sacrifice, and I'm happy to do that. I enjoy going out and working with my guys out in the field. I am an
Mhm.
operations guy. I've always enjoyed that, but I do enjoy some of the more complex part of the business now, the purchasing, the strategic side. So that's where
Uh-huh.
I've hired managers now to do a lot of that heavy lifting stuff for me so that now I can focus on growth and stability and getting into new markets and finding our niche. We've seen our margins decrease by about 80% since
Mm.
we've been in business. From a 50-cent margin to a 2-cent margin,
Mm.
sometimes, a 5-cent margin. So we've got to get really strategic on not only our operations, but on the way we buy and sell fuel,
Mhm.
the way we
Mhm.
transport and move fuel. We don't ever hit the easy button. We don't ever
Yeah.
have the easy button. Just this week, just buying 7 new trucks. It'd be
Wow.
real easy to go to fleet, do our fleet program through Dodge and say, "Hey, I just need 7 trucks. These are the specs. Send them to me." Right? But Joe and I are so competitive that we're looking. I mean, he found one guy, I found another. I beat him by $1,500 on 7
There
trucks,
you go.
$1,500, and we went with that guy. That's
Yeah.
how, and that's the way we do everything.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what small businesses have to do.
You do have
Yeah.
to.
Be strategic. It's interesting. You're starting to bring up a lot of the logistical issues. That may be a good segue into where I like to go in the core of the chat here. How many people are you managing in your business?
So we have about 72, I think, right, is our head count
Okay.
right now. We've been as high as 140. We've been as low as
Okay.
30.
Okay.
We shrunk way down, obviously, in 2020 with COVID. For about
Mhm.
4 or 5 months, we were down to about 7 of us. But
Mhm.
then we grew back after that.
Good for you.
I
Good for
expect
you.
us to be about 100 this year,
Okay.
by June.
So, in as soon as you hear that, all kinds of thoughts start popping in someone's brain. If you're, I guess everybody would think, wow, you got HR challenges, you got, payroll company to deal with or payroll people, you got logistics of moving them around and all. I mean, you got a lot of moving parts. So, what are some of the systems you have in place? Maybe start with some of the softwares you use. Are you using spreadsheets to manage all this? Do you have industry software? How do you manage
Yeah.
everything you got to manage?
That's good. So when we hired CJ, our CFO, we left it up to him to do his background looking, and he came to us. We could have done QuickBooks. We could have done a couple other softwares that have been inexpensive, but do the job well. He chose Oracle NetSuite, and
Hmm.
it was a good choice. It was worth paying the money to get going with it because it handles so much of it. We run our payroll through it. We run ticketing, all of our inventory. Inventory is such a key component that all of our
Yes.
inventory reconciliation, our tax reporting, all of that runs through different avenues of NetSuite now. Our electronic ticketing for our field personnel that we implemented 2 years ago is in Veris, which complements NetSuite really well. And now we're transitioning into Open Invoice, which is
Hmm.
still through Embarrass, but it's just a transition into a new part of it, I guess. And we've
Hmm.
hired people to help us with those transitions because I've been through software implementations before and they're painful. They can be painful. So having guys that are dedicated to do that makes it worthwhile.
Yeah, yeah. Are you guys finding that in those amongst your different software systems you have that there's still areas where they don't talk to each other? Or maybe there are and you're working that's what you're constantly working on. Most people
Early
are.
on. Early on, we did. We had different softwares that just didn't communicate and
Yep.
different processes, and we were growing so fast at a point that everybody was kind of siloed. And the last couple of years, we've kind of started bringing that back in house. Sam Sarah does a lot for us, for our not only our electronic logs, but they supply all of our cameras and monitoring stuff for all of our tank batteries all over the place, as well as our drivers. We do
Yep.
forward and rear facing. Insurance is probably one of our most expensive pieces of our business. I
Oh
mean, it gets
man.
more expensive every year, just like every insurance does.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's actually we're looking at taking our first reduction this year. So good job
Okay.
on the driving. The longer you're in business, the more time that you can show that you're responsible and your driving score goes down. The insurance gets a little bit cheaper on us. There was a time when we had $100,000 deductible and we were paying 80,000
Yeah.
bucks a month still. It's
Wow.
incredible. It's a huge.
That's it crazy. It's crazy. Yeah,
Yeah.
to think about. I mean, like, kind of right up there with doctors, it's
Well,
just malpractice.
if you don't manage that piece really well, it could put you out of business.
Yeah.
And so fortunately, Joe spent an enormous amount of time as I spend time with the people and all this, that back office stuff is equally as important or more important.
Hmm.
And we find that a lot of employees, they take that for granted. A lot of even our managers don't understand until we teach them how
Yeah.
important what they do day in and day out to keep their employees safe, keep themselves safe, to have best practices, make our company not only stronger, but it reduces our costs and adds to our bottom line.
Right, right. So in a commodities world, that's probably one of the toughest things in the world to sell because it's hard to separate yourself and everybody seems to lean into customer service, customer service. And at the end of the day, I mean, that is probably the one thing you can do, right? This is how you treat the customer. Is there anything else outside of that? Or you can get into that if you want to, but is there anything outside of that you've been able to figure out to separate yourself from the crowd?
Absolutely, absolutely. So we have one invention underneath our belt. We just
Mm,
built an automated system that's one of a kind. It's going to be there's
cool.
other people have built them. Nobody's mastered the fully autonomous yet, and I think we've got that down. We have a lot of things that a lot of the others don't. Redundancy. So our motto is, everything I've done in this business, whether it's from logistics to the guys on site to having equipment, you almost have to have 2 to 3 of everything because redundancy is key. If it's mechanical, it'll fail at some point.
Yep.
Employees get tired, employees get complacent. You have to have redundancy built in because we don't ever want our customers to fill the blip. You know,
Yeah.
the mistakes that happen, the flat tire on your way to location. You always have to have fuel moving. And that's what I tell all my logistics people is
Mm,
have fuel moving. Even if you don't have a destination for it yet, we can find a destination. Just make sure it's somewhere where it can be somewhere quick, right? Because it's inevitable, especially where we're at. We're in the middle of the Rocky Mountains with the winter of 4 seasons. I know this winter hasn't been much, but there's been winters
yeah.
where you might get a trucker might get stranded out there for 2 to 3 days sometimes because of the
Ugh,
wind. So you have to
yeah.
train on that, and, you have to talk to your clients and talk them through stuff like that. Like, "Hey, you've got 10,000 gallons on site. We can't get to you for 3 days. You need to shut down and preserve that fuel for your heaters, for all your essentials." Because a lot of them, they
Mhm.
just wanna keep going, and,
Right.
it's like, you can't, I think we do a really good job with building those trust relationships with our clients.
Mhm.
Diesel is the lifeblood of any
Mhm.
frac site, of any drilling rig. It really is, because nothing happens without it. And
Mhm. Mhm.
if you run out, you hear about it. It's a big deal. So we
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
tend to never run out. That's
Yeah. Good for
the
you.
goal. So redundancy is built in. That automation unit, we're really proud of it. We just named it the Pulse. It's deploying out here in a couple weeks. It's
Awesome.
making its maiden voyage. We came in under budget on it. Really, really enjoyed the process of designing it and building it, working with the fabricators and the A&E electrical guys, the instrumentation guys, the programmers on it.
Uh-huh.
It's been a great process. Kind of took me back to my roots a little bit, of
Yeah.
building and doing construction stuff. So
Yeah.
it was very enjoyable. We're hoping it's as successful as we think it will be.
How does that, invention, I guess, in terms of its uniqueness, how's it going to help separate you from the crowd then? Is an automation of some kind, obviously, and maybe you can't talk about it, and that's okay, and maybe we should even I don't know how far along your IP is on this. Yeah, you got some good IP behind it, it sounds like. So,
So
yeah, how's that make you different?
so it
Or
allows
is it
us
gonna help?
you think we get this automation. Now we can report what each pump out there is burning on an hourly basis, a per stage basis, a daily basis, or per shift basis. However we
Okay.
want the user interface is amazing with this. We can program it for each client separately. I can sit here in my office and monitor it, make changes to the way it's pumping, override an alarm, whatever I want to do there. But our goal is to reduce manpower, reduce our costs so that we can pass on the savings to our clients. So not only are we able to deliver a superior piece of equipment than what they're used to, but our end goal is to reduce the cost by reducing our cost of labor on site. So if we've got
Yeah.
3 sites nearby, instead of having 5 to 6 people man those sites, our goal is to have one be able to just go through and check on them and then fill up all the remote stuff that it's not connected to in a timely manner, and one person per
Mm.
shift, that can
Yeah.
manage 3 or 4 of these.
You're doing your part to bring about this, automated age we're all walking into, huh? You're kind of spearheading a little bit of that in your world, it sounds like, so
Well, it's like, I tell everybody, being a fuel tech in our business or in our industry, I should say, is probably one of the easiest jobs you can do because we all put fuel out of a nozzle our whole lives. We watched our parents do it when we were young. When we got our first car, we started doing it. The hardest job in our industry is being a fuel tech on day 30 because it's so boring. It's
uh,
so mundane and you get complacent. Next thing you know, you got a spill or you skip over a piece of equipment. So there's it's really hard. And if we could take that mundane out of guys and hire guys that are challenged and using their heads and engaged, and they feel like they can manage a system, I think not only do our employees, we elevate our employees, but we elevate the whole
Mhm,
industry.
mm. I know a lot of people like us in terms of using AI, we're a software development company, Freedom Dev, your Freedom Fuels. Um, we're finding that it appears that instead of hiring more people over the next few years, we're gonna be able to do more work without having to hire. It sounds like that's what you're kind of describing there as well, right? You're gonna be able to grow without having to add manpower, sounds like?
Essentially, I'm hoping to still add manpower because of growth. You know,
Uh-huh.
there's still going to be maintenance. Maybe it's just shifting from a general labor to more technical type individuals, people with programming background and people with mechanical background. Maybe we start building stuff like this in house
Mhm.
instead of subbing it out. So maybe we do that. It's my goal is to never put my fellow workers out of business at all. That's never been our thing. Joe and I've always prided ourselves on our leadership of men and women, and we love to see. There's nothing more that I enjoy seeing is employees grow while they're with me. I've had some
Mm,
employees that worked for me 2 months after I was started with my first business in the diesel business in North Dakota. So they've worked for
mm,
me for almost 10 years straight and that see them grow and see their families grow and see some leadership. Now they becoming leaders. And that's the most rewarding thing about owning a business and being part
yeah.
of a business that I've ever had.
Yeah, that says a lot about you guys as a company too, and you as your leadership, so good for you, kudos to you. Are you
Thank you.
guys using and maybe you are in this invention you just described, but are you using any, AI? If so, I mean, apart from like we all do, right, where we get in and maybe throw a spreadsheet in there or a Word doc for an email, but are you guys using it in a more sophisticated way at all?
We're not at the moment. We talked a lot about how we can integrate AI into it. And it's going to
Mhm,
come, I think, more from a user interface where AI is going to be able to detect patterns in different pumps, fuel efficiencies in different pumps, so that we can report that back to our clients so that they can maybe maintenance their equipment in a more timely fashion so that they're maximizing their MPGs out of it. Those kind of things is kind of where we've talked about maybe AI coming in and doing
mhm,
the interface with it. But really, it comes down to putting fuel in a tank. We don't want to overcomplicate it either.
yeah,
As that motor burns that tank down and that tank
yeah,
goes low, we just want that tank to be filled up the
yeah.
safest and easiest way possible.
It's interesting you mentioned that it's if you were able to do what you just described for your clients, it's a kind of a value add, which once again helps separate you in the marketplace a little bit. If you can bring that value to them and no one else is able to do that, or you can do it and it just sort of locks them in a little bit more long term. So is the turnover in your customers, it would think once they're locked in and they got someone they trust, it's probably you don't lose them, I would assume.
You do. You can. There's competition. It's a highly competitive industry, the fueling game,
Hmm.
because it is a commodity. And some people you know, you have to, as you mentioned earlier, there's so many aspects, right? There's the
Yeah.
purchasing, there's the buying from, I might travel 4 states away because I get a deal on fuel and I can truck it in cheaper than I could buy it locally. I have to
Ah.
take advantage of every one of those. So that division is constantly hunting for fuel. The other
Hmm.
divisions are constantly hunting for good people and good resources. And then I've got a sales group that's constantly hunting for good clients.
Hmm.
You know, we noticed
Hmm.
about halfway through, so about 22, a lot of the procurement left the field and went to strategic procurement people in Oklahoma City or Houston or
Hmm.
Denver, and we stopped dealing with the field people didn't make those decisions anymore. And we'd spent so many years building these relationships and this trust. And then you get these guys that are just getting out of college and doing their job very well, negotiating contracts
Hmm.
and they're only looking at dollars and cents,
Hmm.
right? So somebody comes in and bids it lower. That's how we've seen that margin erosion over the years is because these guys have gone in and they've done a great job. I would do the
Yeah.
same in their shoes, right? They're being
Yeah.
paid
Yeah.
to procure at the lowest rate and add the best value.
Well, in
They
the
don't.
long-term projects, I mean, that's, they're talking about, I know I have a friend in the fuel industry down in Texas and, some highway is going to get built and they got to bid out that fuel for the entire project over a 3 or 4 year construction process. And so, yeah, a lot of biddings going into that, to get the futures market involved, right? To get the best price. So,
We've had a lot of luck talking with our clients about contracting, so nobody used to contract. I've been able to get clients into contracting now to add value, whether it's a fixed price a month over month.
hmm
I had a
hmm
client 2 years ago. He's been doing this a long time with the same he knows how much fuel he's gonna use, and,
hmm
he told me how much fuel he wanted to contract. I gave him a fixed price for all those gallons each month, and at the end of that job, or at the end of that whole campaign, we came back and did the post-work review, and he says, "There was no better feeling than sitting with all the heads and telling them, 'This is what I was gonna spend on fuel.' The most variable thing you can have on a frac site is fuel. But when I told you I was going to spend this much and I came and I matched it within 2%, he looked like a rock star. Everybody praised him. He didn't care if he was paying a cent more or 5 cents more or 5 cents less
Yep.
for fuel. He loved that he was able to budget for it
Yep.
and and then complete his budget. And so we've been able to take that and talk to a lot of the other procurement people, and it's really
Mm,
helped us build those relationships back now with doing something that they understand. They understand dollars and cents, and
yep.
it's hard to build relationships when over the phone and through bidding processes if you can't continually show progress in the value add.
Yeah, you gotta love those 5-star reviews, don't you? Those, big good case study like that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
great.
no, it was good.
That's good. So as we're winding things down here, you've been at this a while. I mean, you've been obviously managing people and you've grown a quite an organization there. What advice would you give someone who's kind of in the younger side of the COO role and a little bit more newer to things? And they're just watching this right now and they're thinking, man, they can't even imagine, the years ahead of them. And all things being equal, right? We got a wild automation, technology, robotic future. But all things being equal, what type of advice would you give someone who's kind of on the younger
Never
you? What would you give the advice to the younger you?
Don't be afraid of change. Embrace change, look for improvements, be patient, stay true to yourself, believe in a higher power, and don't forget your family because that's who
Mm,
really is there when it's all done.
yeah, yeah, for
But
sure. That's good
embrace
advice.
change is really the biggest thing. Took me a long
Mm-hmm.
time to understand how important change was. Took me a
Mm-hmm.
long time not to be afraid to teach somebody else that was really good how to do my job. I realized not a long time ago, but I realized 15 years ago that the more I taught people how to do my job, the quicker I was advancing in my career.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the rising tide lifts all ships.
Yeah.
It really does. It really
Yeah.
does.
I think
So
that's key for any leader, any COO
yeah.
is accept change,
Yep.
stay challenged. Don't get complacent.
Yeah, and I like what you said about embrace a change because that's, if you're younger right now, and did say all things being equal, but we know that is not the case. So we are about to enter an age where the young people have to, I mean, old people too, but the young people even more, they're going to have to learn to embrace change. That is the name of the game. So that's pretty solid advice right there. So thank you
Absolutely.
today for being on the show and sharing some wisdom and talking about your business, and it's always a fascinating story. I love talking to entrepreneurs. It's just my passion. I, as an entrepreneur myself, so I can't get enough of it myself. And I'm sure there's a nugget in here or two for somebody. I have one guy down in New Zealand. He told me he's listened to every episode we have, and he's just drinks them all up. So there's people out there that are watching, and we'll grab a nugget here
Hey,
from this.
that's
Thank
what it's
you.
all about, right? Thank you for letting me showcase Premium Fuels.
Yeah, you're welcome. Have a great day.
Thanks.